Absolutely.
So this is a typical cutaway view of an urban street. And, you know, the infrastructure that's on the surface, the roads, the bridges, the sidewalks, that part we can see. And think about, you know, every pothole that you see in the pavement, there's probably something like a pothole in the sanitary sewer that's underground, or the conduit that the electrical cables are running through. But that underground infrastructure still has to be monitored. Public Works people need to be staying familiar with what's going on there so that there won't be a catastrophic failure. And if you look at this picture, it looks kind of jumbled up, and the civil engineers that are involved with Public Works have to sort out what goes where so that the sanitary sewer doesn't impact the water line or doesn't leak into the electrical cables. So it's challenging work that's got to be planned and designed ahead of time, and then it's got to be maintained. People need to track what's going on underground where you can't see it.
So one of the things, Stu, and you know, when I was growing up in high school and in St. Paul, you know, we had seemed like a lot of stuff above ground, especially when you talk about electrical. Can you kind of explain why we've gone and moving more and more towards underground?
Right, Jeffrey, thank you. It's related to safety, both the safety of the system and safety of our citizens. Because for all these above ground power lines and telephone lines, cable lines, they are susceptible to weather and other natural situations. A tree might fall over on the power line and your whole neighborhood is knocked out of power for, who knows, a couple of days maybe. When you have an ice storm, that ice will load up that wire, and it's not planned to take that kind of weight, and so it gets brittle and it might just snap. So putting it underground has proven to be less hazardous to the public, but you can imagine that it's considerably more costly and also more complicated to try to figure out, you know, what facilities, what pipes go where. Somebody has to make those decisions, and the somebody is civil engineers who are involved with Public Works.
So Rebecca, I don't understand why, you know, I need to call somebody before I decide to dig up my yard. You know, so can you kind of talk about that before we go on to the next slide?
Sure. These underground systems are everywhere. From the street view, it just looks like a normal street. So it's impossible to know what's underground. So if you start digging in your yard without calling 811 first and the call before you dig, the way that system works is you call that number, you say, I'm going to dig in my yard or in front of my property. All the utilities come out and mark the electric, the gas, the water, the sewer, the cable. They all come out and mark so you don't accidentally stick your shovel into a power line or an underground water main or something like that.
Thank you.
So in Public Works, there are four key elements that play a role. To begin with, we have to do the planning. We have to think about, okay, what is the population that we are going to design for? Both what is the population today and what do we project it to be in 25 years? Somebody's got to do the demographic studies and study the city planning and zoning and so forth and determine, okay, the design period growth is going to be, you know, 2 million people that we've got to prepare for. Then it moves to the design section, and designers have to say, okay, if I've got to build a sewer pipe to accommodate the flows from 2 million people, how big a pipe does that have to be? What slope does it need to be on? You know, after a while, a sewer pipe gets pretty deep and you may have to put in a pumping station, something like that. So once that design work is sorted out, then it goes to the construction people, and the designers have to provide enough detail. Typically in blueprints, nowadays it's all electronic information, but provide that detail to the construction engineers who are installing it, to make sure that it's going in the proper location, avoiding the telephone lines or whatever, and will accommodate the load that you're gonna have on it. Ultimately, then it goes to the operations people, and in the picture on the left, you see operations or maintenance people working on a roadway there, and that's what has to happen with water lines and sewer lines and power lines, whatever, in the same way, except it's not people on the surface like you see here. But all of those play a key role in maintaining our infrastructure system to be able to meet the needs of society.